Welcome to Elected. I'm your host, Luke Radel. Yesterday, I stopped by Brandon Williams' newly opened office in downtown Syracuse to speak with him about his first few weeks in Congress and to see him be sworn in. Take a look.
Big moment. Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Repeat after me. I, Brandon Williams,
I, Brandon Williams,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
that I take this obligation freely,
I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
of the office on which I am about to enter.
on the on the office
On which
on which
I am about to enter.
on the office on which I'm about to enter.
So help me
Almost got
God.
through it. So help me God.
Congratulations.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, it's a tremendous honor, to be one of only 12,000 Americans that have ever served. It's an honor I'm the first nuclear submarine veteran to serve in Congress in 50 years, and that brings a different perspective. And so I'm proud of that heritage and that connection. I've really enjoyed getting to know the other members, right? We've sworn in more veterans into Congress than any time since the 1970s. These are people who, are, passionate about our country. I think they're there for the right reasons. And so I think there's a character to the 118th Congress that's very different. I think we saw that in the first week, that we're not afraid to, have substantive conversations out in the open and to engage the American people. I feel like it's been a great success. So I've been in DC for 2 weeks now. So I've been a politician really for 2 weeks. And it's very interesting. A lot of folks have, asked about our first week and taking 15 votes in 4 days to elect a speaker. And I just want to give you a little bit of insight into my experience with that. People say, did it meet your expectations? Were you frustrated? And the answer is I had no expectations, right? I had no, really prior ideas of exactly how it should go. I did watch it on YouTube, one or two before. So, but I took the opportunity in all those 15 votes to go around and sit with different members. I went and introduced myself to several members on the opposite side, the opposite side across the aisle, and and get to know people's stories. And as they went through the roll call, if you watched that, you went through the roll call. I was following along a lot of times in the in the roll call list. So I would look at a name and then I'd look and see. And so I felt like it's like a really good way to get to know people and names and faces and to hear different people's stories. And so I asked people, if everyone believes that Washington, D.C. is broken, which is more likely to start healing or to start moving in the right direction? A 3-hour coronation of a speaker or a 4-day open and passionate debate of why we're there and what is the role and limitations of a speaker. And quite honestly, I think that it served our democracy. I think it drew the attention of the whole nation in a way that's very healthy.
Speaking of that new Congress, one of the members in it is Congressman George Santos. You've joined a group of New York Republican freshmen calling on him to resign. Why do you believe it's important that he returns to private life?
So, I came through the nuclear Navy. I had a lot of responsibility as the strategic missile officer in my time in the Navy. You can imagine that brings with it a lot of responsibility. And so I care a lot about the people that I'm on a submarine with. I care a lot about the people I'm in Congress with. I think, as the issues around Congressman Santos, come up more and more, I think it's a distraction, and I think those things have to get resolved. I think he's going to have a lot of issues with the FEC that he's going to have to get resolved. So, right now, it's drowning out the media market. Downstate, we've got a lot of new members down there that are excited to talk about what's going on, but it's completely drowned out with noise about George Santos.
There's been reporting that the White House is looking to work with New York Republicans like you who won in Biden districts. Would you be open to working with the White House and compromising on issues of importance to the country and to the district? And what specific issues would you think you'd be willing to work with the Biden administration on?
Sure. Number one, and I think the best example is energy. It's clear with the high price of gas, the high price of heating our homes, the skyrocketing costs of electricity, that what we're doing on energy is not working. We're experiencing brownouts in California, and we just have a fragility to our power infrastructure. The problem with that is that the people that affects the most and harms the most are the working class. 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and when you have rising inflation across the board, particularly in energy, it really creates a crisis for these homes. Through no fault of their own, they're falling further behind, and that's just not right. And so energy is the best place for us to work together to start tackling inflation. The second is spending. It's clear that, the unbelievable amount of spending in the last 2 years, adding to our national debt, has caused the historic spike in inflation. We have to address that. We can't keep spending the way that we're doing. And those are going to be tough negotiations, but they are necessary bipartisan negotiations and working with the Biden administration.
I can't tell you how honored I am. When I'm down there on the House floor, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like it's me, right? Or I actually had to go watch it on C-SPAN. Like, who's that guy? Oh wait, that's me. And the point is that it's a bigger responsibility, really, than any of us can understand. And so, I invite you to communicate with our office. I'm here to love and serve the people of Central New York and the Mohawk Valley. It's the only reason I'm there. And so we have to do things to get our country headed in the right direction. But really, my first obligation is to represent the people here in New York 22.
Just learned today that you are on the House Infrastructure and Transportation Committee. Talk about the work you hope to do on that committee and how it relates to the I-81 project here in Syracuse.
Well, the federal funding's provided, I think, $2.25 billion for that. It's been allocated to the state, and then the state has allocated that, here to this project. They just cut the first contracts for it. It's really going to transform Syracuse, and so, I called Mayor Walsh this morning, and I just said, hey, I want you to know I'm on transportation infrastructure, and look forward to meeting with your people. Tell me what I can do to make this successful for the city of Syracuse.
I also heard that you're looking to get on the Energy Committee to work through what's going on with the Micron investment. Talk a little bit about that and how that committee could help you facilitate the Micron investment here in
Sure.
Syracuse.
So Energy and Commerce is what's called an A committee. It's one of the 2 or 3 most important committees in the House. In this cycle, they did not allow any freshmen to get on the committee. In fact, they took 3 Republican seats off of that committee, 3 Democrat seats off that committee. It had gotten too large under the Democrats. And so, there just simply wasn't room. But, I have an unusual background because I come from the tech industry. We have, obviously the Micron project, which is critical for NY-22. And I'm also the only one with nuclear engineering experience in Congress. And, as we face the challenges of our current energy challenges, nuclear is a big part of that. And I'd like to be, as helpful as I can be to make sure we're making good energy decisions. So I always tell people, sorry to go on, but I always tell people that I have thousands of hours supervising the operation of a nuclear power plant and qualified on 2 different submarine power plants. So I'd love to bring that expertise to Congress.
One of the major contributors to the Micron investment here in Syracuse was the CHIPS Act that was passed by the federal government. That was a law we were pretty critical of at the time it was passed. You referred to it as corporate welfare and criticized some of the, quote, moderate Republicans who signed on. You now say that you're in support of that law. What is your take on the CHIPS Act and how has it evolved over time?
Yeah, there's really three issues with the CHIPS Act. Number one, it is corporate welfare, but it's not industrial policy, it's actually national security policy. So we have to repatriate chip manufacturing in the United States. It's critical for, for our national security. It's critical for our economic security. So when you look at it through that lens, as a national security issue, that's critical. By the way, I think the same thing applies to pharmaceutical. The second thing is...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're saying it's corporate welfare, but you did say you still would have voted for it.
I would have voted for it because it's a national security issue.
Okay.
But, providing, $50 billion to successful companies in general as a principle is something, I don't think the federal government should be doing. In this case, and, with CHIPS, and I would also say for some of the basics for the pharmaceutical industry, we have to extricate ourselves from China. And that's critical for our nation. But the real issues with the CHIPS Act is there's $50 billion to incentivize chip manufacturers to build capacity in the United States. There's a lot of restrictions around that. But then there was another $200 billion added to that. Some of it was good with some workforce development, which is critical for us here, but there was a lot of fluff added onto it. And that's the kind of spending policies that we absolutely have to confront in Washington, where there's one bit of good and then there's 4 times that in pork. So those are the issues around the CHIPS Act, and I've spoken at length with Micron. They know I'm a partner. Energy and Commerce is the committee that will be responsible for that, and so that's why I'm working to get on that committee.
I don't want to keep everyone. I don't think we maybe have time for Q&A, but I do appreciate that everybody's here.
Actually, I was just listening to something.
Unless Mark has a question.
You said about steering our country into the right direction, and how that happens from cradle to grave. I was thinking about civics class. When I was in high school, we took a civics class. Wouldn't it be great if they taught civics again? 3 branches of government, the Constitution, and because a lot of people don't even, what's the Fourth Amendment? What's the Second Amendment or whatever? And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get that going again? Yeah. Just teach civics.
Well, in some ways, our 4-day debate on the House floor
That's what
was a
reminded
civics
me of that.
lesson. People learning about the rules and the roles of the speaker, and maybe it was unintentional, but I think people paying attention to their government is going to produce better government.
Yeah.
So
I think it'd be great. I remember at Corcoran High School, Mr. Southworth taught it, and I got a B, and I liked it. In fact, I think a lot of people liked it. A lot of my peers liked it. Oh yeah, that's great. We should demonstrate against the war.
I'm not going to confess what my civics grade was.
The president will be giving a State of the Union address in a couple weeks. You'll be at the Capitol to hear it. What are you hoping to hear from the president when he speaks?
Well, I'd love to hear him, take a different tone than what we've heard so far. Than the defiant tone and basically, I think the deaf tone to what's happening at the border, what's happening, like I said, with energy and inflation, and to start signaling to the American people that he also hears, what people are experiencing and is willing to shift course and work with a Republican majority in the House to get our country heading in the right direction. So, a lot of times it's hard to make that kind of shift, but that's what real leadership's about. And maybe President Biden will step up and provide that.
I've got one more fun question if you don't mind. What's a good book you've read lately?
I'm reading a biography of General George Marshall. Everybody's familiar with the Marshall Plan, but he was Chief of Staff of the Army in the months leading up to World War II, and then really was the architect of preparing and training the Army before, which was very difficult because we were, at that time the Republicans were very isolationist, and FDR was trying to be helpful to Europe, specifically to England, but everybody was reluctant to rebuild the army. And he really used his credibility and persuasiveness to get America moving in a direction it didn't want to go, so that on December 7th, 1941, we actually had an army and navy, and particularly aircraft, that were ready to respond. And I'm also fascinated by all of the machinations and personalities that went into the decisions of how we fought World War II. Plans to invade France even as early as 1942 or 43, which of course we didn't do until 44. And ultimately we went and invaded North Africa, took on Rommel, and then pivoted to Italy before opening up a second front. And so those kinds of decisions, we read them as history as if it was obvious and that's what everybody agreed on, but you see the incredible amount of agendas, and that's actually very helpful as I go into Congress, to not be naive about wise action and what it takes to turn America around. It's not obvious, and everybody's going to have different agendas, and so I can learn a lot from that.
I like to remind people that we are a republic. No one else is responsible for the success of our government other than the people. And as much as we have given power and authority to our elected officials, including myself, the power and authority only comes from the people. The government doesn't have intrinsic power except that which the people have given it. And so for America to tune in for 4 days, to listen to passionate speeches, to get angry and throw things at the television, I think is very healthy. And so however it is you interpret that first week, I think it's produced a healthier House of Representatives and a good model going forward. So,
Congressman Williams, thank you so much for coming on. We'd love to have you back on again. I really appreciate it.